Most people believe memory loss is the first sign of Alzheimer's. That belief is wrong, and it may be costing you years of preventable decline. I'm Dr. Elias Thorne, neurologist practicing clinical neurology in Chicago for over 22 years. I've worked with more than 3,400 patients dealing with cognitive decline, and what I've learned in those 2 decades contradicts almost everything the general public thinks they know about this disease. Here's the clinical reality. Alzheimer's doesn't begin with forgetting names. It begins silently, years, sometimes a decade, before any memory symptom appears. The hippocampus starts shrinking. Amyloid plaques begin accumulating. Tau proteins start tangling. All of this happens while the person still passes every basic memory test their primary care doctor gives them. The damage is already underway. The window to act is already closing. A 2019 study published in the journal Neurology confirmed that measurable brain changes in Alzheimer's patients begin an average of 15 to 20 years before diagnosis. 15 to 20 years. That means if you're 65 today and this process has already started, the trajectory was set when you were in your mid-40s. That's not meant to frighten you. It's meant to wake you up. Because here's what also happens in those early years. Long before memory fails, the brain sends signals. Specific, measurable, biological signals. And most people either don't recognize them or are told by their doctor that these signals are just aging. They are not just aging. Today, I'm going to give you the 5 signs that your brain may already be on that trajectory. These aren't opinions. These are clinical observations backed by peer-reviewed research. And if you recognize 2 or more of these in yourself or someone you love, you need to take this seriously. Starting today. The first sign is what I call the sleep betrayal. Most people assume poor sleep is a consequence of brain aging. Clinically, we now know it's the other way around. Disrupted sleep, specifically the loss of deep, slow-wave sleep, is one of the earliest measurable signs of neurological stress. Here's the mechanism. During deep sleep, your brain activates a system called the glymphatic pathway. This is essentially a biological cleaning system that flushes out metabolic waste, including amyloid beta, the primary protein that forms the plaques associated with Alzheimer's. When deep sleep is compromised, this flush doesn't happen. Amyloid accumulates faster. A 2017 study from the National Institutes of Health demonstrated that just 1 night of sleep deprivation produced a measurable increase in amyloid beta in the human brain. 1 night. Now imagine years of fragmented sleep. If you wake up frequently, rarely feel rested, or fall asleep easily, but wake at 2 or 3 a.m. and lie there for hours, that is not benign. That is your brain's waste clearance system failing at night, leaving behind deposits it cannot remove. The practical step here is non-negotiable. Prioritize sleep architecture, not just sleep duration. Avoid screens 90 minutes before bed. Keep your room at 65 to 67 degrees. And if you suspect sleep apnea, get tested. Oxygen interruptions during sleep accelerate this damage dramatically. The second sign is what I call the word retrieval gap. Not forgetting what happened yesterday. Not losing your keys. I mean the specific experience of knowing exactly what you want to say. And the word simply not arriving. You see the object. You know the concept. The word is gone. Patients describe it as reaching for something that keeps moving. This happens because of early deterioration in the left temporal lobe and the angular gyrus, regions responsible for lexical retrieval. What makes this sign significant is that it's neurologically specific. It's not general cognitive fatigue. It's a localized signal that the verbal processing network is under stress. The practical implication, verbal engagement, is protective. Daily reading aloud, crossword puzzles, learning new vocabulary, even storytelling. These activities stimulate neural pathways that compensate for early deterioration. Use language aggressively. The less you use it, the faster those pathways thin. The third sign is what I call navigation drift. This one surprises people. But spatial disorientation, getting confused in familiar places, losing your sense of direction somewhere you've been dozens of times, misjudging distances while driving, is among the most clinically significant early markers we track. The entorhinal cortex is one of the first regions damaged in Alzheimer's disease, and this region is the brain's GPS. It contains what scientists call grid cells and place cells, neurons that literally map your position in space. When patients begin reporting that they took a wrong turn in their own neighborhood or felt briefly lost in a grocery store they've shopped at for 10 years, I take that very seriously. Spatially challenging activities, learning a new route on foot, using paper maps instead of GPS, engaging in activities that require three-dimensional thinking, like woodworking or certain card games, directly stimulate and reinforce entorhinal function. The fourth sign is what I call emotional flattening. Not depression, not sadness, something more subtle and more troubling, a reduction in emotional range. Things that used to bring genuine pleasure no longer generate the same response. Not because life is worse, but because the circuitry that processes reward and emotional response is being affected. The mechanism here involves the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and the nucleus accumbens, regions governing motivation and emotional resonance. Early neurodegeneration in these areas produces what clinicians call apathy syndrome. Patients stop initiating activities. They become passive. They watch more, engage less. They don't feel sad. They feel flat. Families often interpret this as the person slowing down or being tired. Clinically, it is a neurological flag. The practical response is behavioral activation, specifically social engagement and novelty. The brain's reward system responds to new experiences and genuine human connection. If you've noticed this flatness in yourself or a family member, the response cannot be passive. It must be deliberate and active. The fifth sign is what I call the afternoon fog. Most people assume cognitive dips in the afternoon are about blood sugar or just being tired after lunch. Clinically, I see something different. Patients who later develop mild cognitive impairment consistently report years of pronounced afternoon mental cloudiness, difficulty concentrating, slower processing, word-finding difficulty specifically between 2 and 5 p.m. The mechanism involves disruption in the circadian regulation of cortisol and acetylcholine, the primary neurotransmitter for learning and memory. When this system is dysregulated, the brain's afternoon maintenance window, the period when it consolidates the morning's learning and prepares for new input, becomes dysfunctional. The practical step: protect your afternoon cognitive window deliberately. A 20-minute nap before 3 p.m. has been shown in multiple studies to restore acetylcholine function and improve afternoon cognitive performance. Not longer, not later, precisely timed. Now, before I give you what may be the most important information in this video, I want to ask you something. If at least 2 of these signs resonate with you or someone you love, I need you to do one thing right now. The link to everything I'm about to reference is in my pinned comment below this video, not in the description. The pinned comment. Go there now, save it, and come back. Here is what the research consistently tells us. And this is where clinical nutrition and neuroscience intersect. The brain at 60, 65, 70 is not the same metabolic environment as the brain at 40. Mitochondrial efficiency declines. Neuroinflammation increases. The production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the compound responsible for creating new neural connections, drops measurably. Lion's mane mushroom extract has been shown in published clinical trials to directly stimulate NGF, nerve growth factor, which upregulates BDNF production. Phosphatidylserine supports membrane integrity in neurons, improving signal transmission. Bacopa-Monieri has demonstrated in randomized controlled trials a measurable effect on verbal memory and processing speed in adults over 55. These aren't fringe supplements. These are peer-reviewed compounds with specific documented mechanisms of action in the aging brain. The research behind what I explained today converges on one point. I found a formulation that combines exactly these compounds. The link is in the pinned comment. Now, let me tell you about a few of my patients. Robert, 69, from Texas, came to me after his wife noticed he'd gotten lost twice driving home from their church, a route he had driven for over a decade. He scored borderline on spatial cognition testing. Within 4 months of addressing sleep hygiene, behavioral activation, and targeted nutritional support, his wife told me he seemed, and I'm quoting her, like himself again. Robert's concern had been that it was already too late. It was not. Bill, 73, from Ohio, is a retired engineer. Sharp man. He came to me because the word retrieval gaps were affecting his confidence in conversations. He'd stop mid-sentence. He'd feel embarrassed. His primary care physician had told him it was normal for his age. I ran a full panel. His BDNF levels were significantly suppressed. We addressed it directly. 3 months later, he called my office to tell me he'd given a 40-minute talk at his grandson's school, unscripted, without a single gap. Frank, 71, from Michigan, had the emotional flattening I described. His family thought he had depression. He didn't. He had early apathy syndrome. He was resistant to the idea that nutrition could affect cognition. He came from a generation that trusted medication over supplementation. I showed him the peer-reviewed data directly. He changed his position. 6 weeks later, his daughter messaged my team to say he'd started cooking again, something he hadn't done in 2 years. George, 66, from Pennsylvania, had the afternoon fog so severely that he'd stopped scheduling anything after 2 p.m. He ran a small business. This was affecting his livelihood. We identified the acetylcholine disruption, addressed the circadian regulation issue, and added targeted support. He told me that within 6 weeks he'd reclaimed his afternoons entirely. These are not miracles. These are biology responding to the right inputs. If you've been watching this and recognizing yourself in any of these 5 signs, don't wait for your next annual physical to bring this up. Don't assume this is just aging. The research is clear. The window to act is open right now, and it will not stay open indefinitely. The link to everything I've discussed today, the compounds, the formulation, the clinical references, is in my pinned comment below. Not the description. The pinned comment. Go there right now. Your brain built everything you've achieved in this life. It deserves this level of attention.